Lash is one of the most misunderstood COs in competitive Advanced Wars. Newer players think she is amazing, while pro players claim she is overrated. I myself used to think Lash was really good back in the day. Just listen to how I talk about her in one of my earliest Advanced Wars tier lists.
The thing about Lash is that she has no weaknesses. Like, there's nothing about her that is weak. Only strengths. She just gets so much defense and so much firepower, and defense is broken in this game, so which is why Lash is so overpowered.
What's even more funny is that even the developers of Advanced Wars fell into the same trap of overvaluing Lash as a CO, because they straight up nerfed her in Dual Strike, cutting her day-to-day firepower bonus in half, and they even gave Sonya a day-to-day that directly counters hers. So what is up with this CO? Why is she so misunderstood? What is it that newer players don't get about her that pro players have figured out? In this video, we are going to take a look at why Lash is considered overrated in competitive Advanced Wars. In the online scene, players adhere to tier lists when it comes to selecting their COs to ensure a fair match, as some COs in Advanced Wars are just blatantly stronger than others. COs are divided into 5 tiers. Tier 0 for the best ones, and Tier 4 for the worst ones. Lash is rated as a Tier 3 CO, on par with Andy, Drake, Kindle, Rachel, and Sonya in Fog. Lash is certainly considered better than the Tier 4 trash COs, but in Tier 3 she is often looked at as the bottom pick on most maps. This puts Lash in a very rough spot, since she's considered too strong for Tier 4, but too weak for Tier 3, which is why she almost never gets picked. But why? Why is she considered the bottom pick of Tier 3? To answer that, we need to take a deep dive into her abilities to see what she's able to do. Lash is a CO that at first glance appears very strong. She has no weakness, all of her units are normal, but they also get a passive 10% bonus to firepower per terrain star. This means Lash gets a 10% bonus on plains, 20% bonus in forests, 30% bonus on properties, and a whopping 40% bonus in mountains and on HQs. This seems very strong. Compare this to a CO like Jake, for example, who only gets a 10% bonus on plains. Lash gets the same bonuses he does, in addition to everything else, with the only exception being her air units. A CO like Kindle, who is considered the top pick of Tier 3, gets a 40% firepower bonus on properties, but Lash gets 30% since properties have 3 terrain stars. That's only 10% less, and Lash gets a bunch of other boosts in addition to this. Whenever she attacks from forests, for example, she's effectively on par with Max. So at first glance, this day-to-day appears really strong, and it is. It passively boosts firepower across the board with no downsides, as terrain stars is something you want to try and maximize anyway, so it's not like her day-to-day forces you to position your units awkwardly. Next, let's move on to Lash's CO powers. Her normal power, Terrain Tactics, costs 4 stars and reduces the movement cost of all terrain to 1. This allows her infantry to dart over mountains and rivers, it allows her tanks to drive to forests, and her recons can sweep over plains with no difficulty. Terrain Tactics will even ignore the extra movement cost of rain, so Drake's Typhoon won't be able to slow you down. But do be aware that Snow will. Though Olaf is a tier higher than Lash, so this matchup is incredibly uncommon, and you probably won't see it. Terrain Tactics does have uses, and depending on the map it can be good, but the price tag of 4 stars is quite considerable, especially when compared to other normal powers. Lash's superpower, Prime Tactics, costs 7 stars in total, and it has the same benefits as Terrain Tactics, allowing her to ignore terrain cost for a turn, and additionally it also doubles her defense stars. To newer players, this seems amazing. Who doesn't love to see 6 terrain stars while on properties, or the hilarious 8 terrain stars you can get on mountains? Considering this superpower also works hand in hand with Lash's day-to-day firepower bonus, effectively doubling it, it seems even more amazing. You put some rockets on a city and bam, you enjoy a 60% bonus to your firepower. On its surface, Prime Tactics seems like the perfect mix of abilities. It combines mobility, offense, and defense into one neat package. So why isn't Lash rated higher? Well, once we start analyzing Prime Tactics, its flaws begin to surface. First, we have to talk about its cost of 7 stars. That's 1 extra compared to most other COs in Tier 3, and on par with Drake's Typhoon, which is easily the strongest super in Tier 3, dealing 2 HP of global damage to every single unit on the map, while slowing them down in the rain and halving their fuel. The other superpowers in this tier, Andy's Hyper Upgrade and Rachel's Covering Fire, both cost 6 stars, and they are considered very strong as well. A well-used hyper upgrade can win you the match, and Rachel's covering fire is universally hated for how annoying it is to go up against. One extra star may not seem like much to a neuro player, but in competitive play, this means that Lash will nearly always get her superpower second. And a CO like Kindle, who spams her normal power, may even be able to fire off 2 Urban Blights before Prime Tactics is even ready. Furthermore, Lash's superpower is very dependent on circumstance. When you get to utilize it on properties or mountains, it feels amazing. But on roads, shoals, and bridges, it just straight up does nothing. On planes, it gives you a measly 10% extra bonus to your firepower and defense, which is laughable. On forests, it gives you 20% extra firepower and defense, which is also laughable for a superpower. Only on properties does it start to become useful, adding 30% firepower and 30% defense, which almost feels like a mini samurai spirit. Sure, mountains and HQs makes her units nigh invulnerable, but mountains are exclusive to infantry and mechs, the latter not being seen much in competitive play, and there's only ever a single HQ on the map, so it's rare that you'll get to utilize it for Prime Tactics. Despite its dependence on terrain, the most crippling downside of Lash's superpower is something that many new players aren't even aware of, and that is the fact that Prime Tactics does not double defense, it doubles terrain stars, and that is a very important difference. You see, terrain stars in Advanced Wars gives your units 10% extra defense per star, but there is a hidden mechanic that the game doesn't tell you about, and that is the fact that terrain stars scale with a unit's total HP. If you have a tank with 5 HP on a city, for example, it may display 3 terrain stars for 30% extra defense, but in actuality, it only gets half that, so 1.5 terrain stars for 15% extra defense. And if the tank's HP is brought even lower, the defense is reduced as well. This is a hidden mechanic that makes it easier to finish off weakened units, especially when they hunker down on heavy terrain. It's actually a really great game mechanic, but it's really unfair against Lash, as her entire gimmick is relying on terrain stars. Due to this hidden mechanic, Prime Tactics ends up being far worse than advertised. Sure, a unit getting 60% extra defense on a property is pretty strong. Add the 10% passive boost from powers on top of that, and the unit ends up with a grand total of 70% extra defense, which can make interrupting captures very difficult. But let's say that the unit is on 7 HP instead of 10. Suddenly, that defense bonus is lowered from 70% down to 52%, and every time the unit takes further damage, it will just keep losing more and more of that bonus, until it doesn't end up mattering at all. This adds another conditional to Lash's superpower, which is already situational by nature. Not only does she need to utilize the proper terrain to get the full benefits, but she also preferably wants her units to not be damaged. Otherwise, they will get a significantly smaller boost from Prime Tactics. Now, on its own, this may not sound overly detrimental for Lash, but then you have to take a look at the other COs in Tier 3. Kindle with her Urban Blight, Drake with his Tsunami and Typhoon, and Rachel with her Covering Fire. All of these powers reduce the HP of enemy units, which further weakens the potential of Prime Tactics and puts Lash in a very rough spot. Now, I'm not going to undersell Lash's day-to-day. It is arguably the best one in Tier 3. She gets a passive firepower increase, which is very useful. But sadly, her normal power is just horrible for its price. And her superpower is just way too situational and is also quite overpriced. While having a strong day-to-day bonus is important, the COs in Tier 3 generally win games due to their powers, and Lash has the objectively worst powers in this tier, which is why she's so hard to use. A superpower is supposed to be a powerful pushing tool that swings the game in your favor. Prime Tactics doesn't do this consistently. It's just kinda nice when it comes in, and you can pull off some interesting maneuvers with it if you plan ahead. But sadly, nice and interesting isn't going to cut it against global damage, global repairs, and missiles falling down on you. So to conclude, Lash is a CO with a very strong day-to-day power, but her CO powers suck, and she matches up poorly against most of the other COs in the same tier. Furthermore, the reason why Lash's superpower is weak is due to an unexplained game mechanic that newer players are not likely to know about, which is why there is such a big gap between how less experienced players perceive Lash compared to how more advanced players do. This puts Lash in an awkward spot where noobs think she's underrated, when she is actually overrated. And that is why Lash is not often played in competitive Advanced Wars. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and a comment. And if you enjoy videos like these, check out this playlist with tons of great Advanced Wars content in it. My name is Mengs, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye!